Seats so that we can start our forum. The League of Women Voters is pleased to present this general issues forum for the candidates running for 3 different seats in the state legislature. Those seats represent districts 3B, 7A, and 7B. This forum is scheduled for 1.5 hours. At this point, we would ask you to turn off your cell phones. Personal photos, videotaping, or recording of this forum is not allowed. My name is Susie Darley Hill, and I serve as the Voter Service Co-Chair for League of Women Voters Duluth. Moderating this forum tonight is Jane Gilley. Jane is a member of the League of Women Voters in Duluth and is a trained and certified League of Women Voters moderator. Jane will introduce the forum and the candidates in a few minutes. We are also providing an American Sign Language supported format this evening. Amanda Gilderman and Karen Sheldon will be providing those services. We also thank Lisa Richardson, who is making CART services also available this evening. The League of Women Voters has had a presence in this community as a nonpartisan political organization for 90 years. It is the League's mission to promote citizen involvement in government and increase public understanding of major public policy issues. We believe that an informed citizenry is the foundation of effective democracy. The League is open to membership for men and women who are interested in nonpartisan civic participation, and you are invited to join us. You can find out more information on our website at www.lwvduluth.org. That's LWV Duluth, all one word, .org. You can also pick up membership forms on your way out, or speak directly with any of our members attending tonight's event. A filming of this forum is being provided by PACT TV. A copy of the filming will be available online at our League site, along with a schedule of PACT TV showings. Those who are interested in finding information about same-day registration, your voting district and/or polling location, can stop by the League table outside and we will help link you to that data. This evening you received some materials from Speak Your Piece, the Civility Project. One is a green-colored card that lists the 9 tenets of civility. On the white sheet is a listing of expectations of you, the audience members, as this forum proceeds. Because the League of Women Voters has always structured our forums in a way that promotes civility, this is a civility certified event. Speak Your Piece, the Civility Project, is an initiative of the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation and the League of Women Voters Duluth. The foundation and the League would like to thank you in advance and the candidates for your cooperation. Please remember to exercise your right to vote in the general election on Tuesday, November 4th.
Hi everyone, my name is Jane Gilley and I'll be your moderator for tonight's program. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I welcome you all. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization that works at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While we as a league do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties or candidates. This is how we define nonpartisan. The views expressed at tonight's candidate forum are those of the participating candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters of Duluth. Additionally, League sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any individual candidate participating. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to the candidates. On my left, in District 3B, we had Wade Fremling and Mary Murphy. On my right, we have the candidates for District 7A, Becky Hall, Chris Osbachen in the middle, and Jennifer Schultz on the end. Running for office in District 7B is Eric Simonson. I want to let you know that Travis Silvers was invited and accepted our invitation to participate in this forum tonight. We received a call from him yesterday afternoon indicating that he would not be able to participate in tonight's forum. In accordance with the League's updated open chair policy, Mr. Simonson has been invited to join the other candidates as a regular participant in tonight's forum. So this is the format for the forum. We'll begin with each candidate giving a 2-minute opening statement. That'll be followed by a question round with 4 questions that have been solicited and vetted by the league organizing committee. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to those questions. This will be followed by the lightning round, which involves a 1 or 2 word topic with candidates having 15 seconds to respond off the top of their heads, so to speak. The lightning round will be followed by audience questions, and candidates will have 1 minute to respond. I'm sure that we'll have time for at least 3 questions from the audience. Lastly, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. Candidates were not given the questions in advance. The questioning round has been set up so that each set of candidates within the district will respond to questions in a rotating manner. So actually, I think we're starting with Eric, so that's not a rotation, but then we'll move to the candidates in 3B, and Wade will start. He won the draw earlier tonight, followed by Mary. Then we'll move over to the District 7A, and Jennifer Schultz will start with that round. We're hoping that this format will allow residents in the districts to have an easier time to compare the answers of all the candidates in their district. We would like to encourage audience members to submit questions of their own. Audience questions will be asked of all candidates. Index cards were provided at the door when you came in. If you need cards during the forum, just raise your hand and someone will be able to give you one, as well as giving your completed questions to the aides so we can gather them. All submitted questions will be assessed for clarity and bias. Those that fall into the same general category will be consolidated. This will allow us to cover as many topics as possible. Questions that are deemed unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. All audience questions will become the property of the League of Women Voters. So to start tonight, as I mentioned, District 7B won the round for the district starting, so Eric will have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank the league for hosting this event, and I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, taking the time out of your busy schedules to come down and listen to us. My name is Eric Simonson, and I'm running for House Seat 7B, which represents Central and Western Duluth. I'm just completing my first term in the House, and I'm looking for your support because I want to go down and I want to continue what I think is some really good work that we accomplished over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, when I was first elected and went down to the Capitol in July of 2013, we faced what looked like an insurmountable task. We were looking at a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit. We were looking at a decade of repeated cuts to services, repeated deficit spending situations, and a huge debt that we owed to our schools. We looked at that and we decided that it was time that Minnesota turned a corner, became more progressive, and started to address some of its fiscal challenges. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we did over the last 2 years by increasing revenues to the point where we could pay off the money that we owed our schools. We could develop a structurally sound state budget going forward. And we were able to invest in some programs that have long been neglected. Beyond that, over the last 2 years, I've focused on some Duluth issues that are of significance. I'm proud to say that we passed one of the strongest synthetic drug laws in the country. I'm proud to say that we worked and we tweaked the local government aid formula to bring more money back to the city of Duluth so that property taxes could remain low. And so many social policies that we were able to enact, and that's the kind of work that I want to continue to do. So thank you for coming tonight.
We'll now move to candidates in District 3B and start with Wade Fremling.
Hi, I'm Wade Fremling. Thanks for including me tonight. I got into this basically because no one was running against Mary. And someone has to do that. I have looked at some of the issues. You know, I've looked at our spending that we've had. At home, we all do kitchen table economics. We pick out what's important, take the rest of it, and if we can, we do it. If we can't, we don't. We need to do that down at the legislature. In St. Paul right now, we're spending $1 million per office on a Senate building that is not needed. That money could easily be used much better somewhere else. We're building a stadium for the Vikings. Vikings are great to have around. Ziggy Wilf's a millionaire or a billionaire. Should not be getting that money. How many of you have your own business that could use a little input from the state? You know, those are the things that are wrong. I'd like to right those things, and I would also like to see an audit done to each and every department that the state runs, so we can find out where waste is at, and again, repair that. And we need to start funding our roads. Our transportation budget has basically been flat since 1960. We need to fix that. I'm looking for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Mary Murphy. I'm State Representative, District 3B. I am completing my 19th term at the legislature. Last night, my opponent said that older workers have life experiences. They can solve problems like I'd never be able to figure out. I'm an older worker. I agree with my opponent. I want to continue my service. I've never looked at it as a career. I've looked at it as an opportunity and a gift from the voters to me, to be their voice at the right time, at the right place. I'm out and about all year long, every year, not just during campaign season. I work hard every single day. Once in a while, I take a day off. Once in a while, I take a vacation. Once in a while, I visit my family, who are all away. But for the most part, the people's service is my everyday. Not a career, but a vocation. And I am grateful and humbled by the opportunity that the people of District 3B, 14B, 8A, was one more, have given me over the years. And I promise to continue working hard if I'm allowed to continue.
We'll move to candidates in District 7A, and we'll start with Jennifer Schultz.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Schultz, the DFL candidate for the 7A seat, which is East Duluth. Let me just start by thanking the League of Women Voters. The League was started by strong women and suffragists who fought for the right to vote. Because of their determination and grit, we not only have the right to vote, but we have female candidates running. In this race, we have 3 female candidates running. But the fight's not over. We need to continue to fight to give our children and our grandchildren the tools they need to succeed. I believe I have the experience and leadership to be a strong advocate for Duluthians. I'm a professional economist at UMD, and I owe my success to public education. As an economist with over 20 years of experience, I solve problems using facts, proven science, and sound economic principles, not slogans or ideological myths. I'm running for the legislature because I passionately believe that our government exists and was created to work for all Minnesotans. I believe the government exists to protect and to empower us. And in this country, I believe every person deserves equal respect and dignity by each other and by our government. I believe the middle class is the engine of our economy and that we need to strengthen the middle class and protect working families from extreme ideas that may be detrimental to our future. I know that education is the cornerstone of both our state's economy and of personal opportunity. And I want to make sure education works for all Minnesotans. I also want to make sure that healthcare is affordable and accessible to all Minnesotans. I'm eager to share my ideas with you tonight, and I hope that you vote for me on November 4th. Thank you.
Becky?
Hi, I'm Becky Hall, and I'm also running in 7A, and I appreciate tonight's forum. Thank you for inviting me. This isn't the first time I've run for office. I'm very excited to be a part of this campaign, as I have been in the last races that I've run in. I jumped into this race, actually I was the first person to jump into this race almost a year ago, last November. When I saw what was going down in St. Paul, I see one voice being represented down in St. Paul right now. And I know that's not a good representation of Duluth. So I'm out there talking with folks in my neighborhood, hearing their concerns, knocking at their doors, meeting in the parks, and the issues I hear from them I don't think are necessarily being addressed in St. Paul. So I want to be the voice for my neighbors in 7A. I hear concerns about education, the economy, jobs, mining, taxes, and healthcare. In 2013, our one voice that's representing us right now in St. Paul passed a $2 billion tax hike on us Minnesotans. Now, some here want to say that that's only going to affect the wealthy, but we all know that's not true. There isn't enough wealthy folks in Minnesota to pay the $2 billion tax bill. Those costs will be passed down to all of us, and they already are. I'm concerned about our slow-growing economy and our growing government. You know, my experience is in economic development. I used to work for the state of Minnesota in communities and working with businesses to grow the tax base, to grow jobs. I'm raising 5 kids. I don't want to see my kids become economic refugees and have to look for jobs outside of the state of Minnesota. We have wonderful opportunities here to support good paying jobs for our families. I believe in the people. The government should be supporting the people and in a small role, and I look forward to being that voice for the people in 7A. Thank you.
Mike's on.
My light is on. Oh, okay, thanks. No, it's way far away, it seems. Some of you know me as a teacher and a writer. Some of you may know I owned 2 small businesses when I lived in Philadelphia. Some may not know I lived on a small farm with goats and chickens and raised my 2 sons in Wisconsin. Many know I've been an activist, an organizer for the arts, for labor, for social and economic justice. And some of you may wonder why I am running when the 2 major parties have candidates. Well, the elephant is in the room, and it is sulfide mining. The extractionists are at our back door. We thought they ruined third world countries. They're here, and we don't have a lot of time to stop them. I know that Becky Hall supports mining up the Gohuli, 5 beautiful children, and they won't be able to drink the water. Jen Schultz had a wonderful position paper against the mining, and I asked her, why is that not on her website? Her first answer was, she doesn't change her website very often. Her second answer was, Klobuchar, Nolan, and Franken support the mining, and she cannot put that opposition up on her website. Is that the kind of candidate we want? A candidate because her party does not allow her to speak her mind, cannot speak her mind. Is she going to represent the people up here who do not want that mining? People have an option. They can occupy the ballots. They can vote for a Green Party candidate, and that is myself, Chris Osbakken.
We will now begin the question and answer period of tonight's forum, and we will start with those questions that were solicited by the League of Women Voters Organizing Committee. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to these questions, and we're going to start with District 3B, Mary Murphy. Question is, what new legislative initiatives would you support to strengthen and protect our election system and to encourage voter turnout?
I don't have a new initiative that would strengthen our election system and encourage voter turnout. I think that we have to continue to have elections, open elections, where people can register to vote on election day. I think we should be able to continue to have early voting. I think we should have more opportunities for ballot or mail-in ballots, and more areas should qualify for having mail-in ballots. And I think we should make sure that we have absentee ballots, an open period of time where all absentee ballots get in by election day.
Well, I think we should have voter ID for fair elections. You need an ID to open a checking account. You need an ID to get a library card. You can't get on a plane without an ID. As far as promoting elections, it should start in our schools, in our high schools. We need to educate our children on just how important it is for them to get involved in the process. They're our future, and that's what we need to do. And that is what I would advocate. Thank you.
We'll now move to candidates in 7A, and we'll start with Becky Hall.
I think we need better verification of our voting records. In the Coleman-Franken campaign, folks who filled out the cards when they were registering to vote, I understand there were close to 30,000 of those cards that came back unverified after the election. So I think we need to, our Minnesota State Constitution requires that voter verification take place before Election Day. So I think we need to make some improvements on that. I like the idea of bringing back the kids' vote here in our local community, getting our younger generation involved. As a matter of fact, I remember a few years back winning the kids' vote when I was running for city council. So I have faith in my future generation. And I also think that voter ID would improve the integrity of our voting process.
Chris Osbakken?
It would, the Secretary of State, the legislature, should make it easier for third parties to voice candidates. It is a really hard process now. And you have 2 weeks to, depending on the position that you want to run for, 2 weeks to garner sufficient signatures. In my case, it was 500, but you really need 600 or more to ensure that those are good signatures. For the Secretary of State, I believe it was 2,000. Excuse me, it would be for Secretary of State and the major positions, the 4 major positions. So we need to hear other voices in our legislature and in our government, and we need to make it easier for third parties to be able to run.
Thank you. Eric? Oh, wait a second, Jen Schultz, I'm sorry, jumped ahead of myself, excuse me.
Voter fraud should not be a concern. We want to make voting much easier. It's a phantom concern that there's voter fraud. Out of 146 million registered voters, only 1 out of 14.6 million eligible commit fraud. I think it should be easier for those who are convicted of a felony to vote, even when they're on probation. I think that we need to make it easier to vote by using more vote by mail. And I think that we might want to think about having ballots in other languages to make, so it doesn't impede people who may not be able to read or write in English. I think voter ID laws are discriminatory. It hurts the elderly, hurts young adults, hurts the disabled, and it hurts people of color. And I agree with Judge Posner, who actually reversed his ruling over the last 5 years, that voter ID should not be enforced in our states and in Minnesota. Thank you.
Eric?
Well, thank you for the question. I think, what my intent over the next session would be is to take a look at what we did last session and evaluate how it's working and what we can do to improve on and build upon that. We passed no excuse absentee voting, which seems to be well received within the communities. And I'd like to, get some feedback and some data on that and how well it's working and what we can do to possibly improve that. As well as the online voter registration. I think these are changes that we made that make good sense for Minnesotans, that were asked for by Minnesotans. And I would just like to, give it a little time and let's see how it works. We can evaluate it and we can adjust it going forward if we need to. But I do want to just briefly piggyback on the point that Ms. Schultz made about, different languages. Many of our communities are diversifying at incredible rates, and it is something that we need to consider going forward.
Second question. What is your view of Minnesota aid to local governments? What are the pros and cons associated with this program? We're going to start this round with candidates in 7A, and Chris Osbachen, you're the first.
It's the people's money. Should be coming back to the people. Our taxes go down to St. Paul. Shouldn't feed just the administration down there. Local aid should come back to us. And some of it was returned in the last session. That was great, especially the amount of money taken from the school districts.
Well, we need to make sure that we get our fair share of tax dollars in local government aid and county aid. During the Pawlenty administration, they cut $2.8 billion from education to balance the budget, the state budget, and they borrowed that money from our schools. So we were strapped. Had a problem in Duluth to fund our school systems and had to pass a levy and increase property taxes, and that happened throughout the state. So we want to make sure that we fund local government aid so we don't have to increase our property taxes, so we can have great schools and we can educate our students, we can attract businesses with the highly skilled workforce. We need to make sure that we increase that funding and get our fair share. And I believe last session we received $116,000 in increased local government aid. But we need to make sure we're protecting this education and the services that we need to thrive in Duluth and in our state.
Becky?
Right. Well, and in the last legislative session, in the 2013 legislative session, the local government aid formula was changed and sends more money to the metro area than it does rural Minnesota. The formula used to be closer, it was a 69-31 ratio, rural to metro area. It's now moving closer to almost a 50-50 split in local government aid. In the $80 million in increased funding this year in local government aid, $22 million of it goes to Minneapolis, St. Paul. So we need to tweak that formula. I'd also like to address two areas in local government aid that have to do with education and transportation. We need more local government aid going to the rural area that would take care of our transportation needs, especially here in the city of Duluth. And education, you know, a lot of rural schools are now being required to provide all-day kindergarten, and local government aid could be a way to help fund their capital improvements. Right now, that's not available with local government aid.
Thank you. Eric Simonson and 7B, please.
So I sit on the House Tax Committee, and I was on the subcommittee that worked on changing the LGA formula in 2013. So I think we really did a smart thing by changing that formula, because it now recognizes three things that are more current than the formula that was put into place 10 years ago. And you've got to remember that this LGA was put into place and was known and is known today still as the Minnesota Miracle. I mean, this is the system that helps keep property taxes low in cities that don't have the tax base to afford it. But the current formula looks at housing density, both pre-1940 and post-1970. It looks at jobs, and it looks at population. These are the items that we figured out that made the most sense. And yes, now we have LGA monies going to inner ring suburbs of the Twin Cities, but that's okay, because you know what? Those cities are getting older, their infrastructure is getting older, their tax base is eroding, they are 100% built out, and they have needs too.
Thank you. Candidates in District 3B, and we will start with Wade.
Hermantown is a perfect example of inequity. Hermantown is getting not nearly the LGA that another city of the same size in this state would be getting. I was speaking to the mayor today about it, and he's very disappointed because he said that down at the legislature, they were telling him, because of all of the different businesses that are in Hermantown, that they don't need that money. Well, of course, all of the car dealerships have moved to Hermantown, and there is industry in Hermantown. We need to make it fair. And $21,000 per pupil in the Twin Cities compared to about maybe 10 to 14,000 for people in the District of 3B per pupil, that's not fair. Thank you.
Local government aid. Local government aid goes to cities. Some cities. Local government aid goes to counties. Local government aid barely goes to townships. Townships need a greater share of the local government aid, especially townships that are around big areas. The local government aid has never been fair to new cities. Local government aid has always rewarded cities with lots of spending. Local government aid is not fair, but local government aid is a lot better than not having local government aid.
Thank you. Next round of, the next question in this round, how would you plan to adequately fund Minnesota School District to meet the needs of all students? We will start with District 7B with Eric.
Well, I think in the last session, we increased funding to the school districts by an incredible amount. And in addition to that, we paid back the school shift. But I also know that the education committees are telling us that our work there isn't done, and that more money on the per pupil formula is needed in the school system, in the public school system, which I don't disagree with. I think that those education committees are going to do some really good work in the next session and come up with some, review of the data that has gone out and has come back in. But the reality is that I think the majority of the legislature believes that if we have surplus monies, greater portion of that needs to be spent on education, because that is where Minnesota gets the best return on its investment. Every dollar we put into public education returns itself many times over.
Thank you. We'll go to candidates in District 3B, starting with Mary Murphy.
Question?
I certainly will. How would you plan to adequately fund Minnesota school districts to meet the needs of all students?
I think we have to look at the per pupil unit spending formula again and continue it on. I think that education should be number one, funding education across the state should be number one priority in the state, in the legislature. I think that the money should be spent in rural Minnesota as well as in metropolitan Minnesota. And I think we have to have less dedication of funding and more local control by the school boards of how the money that they do receive gets spent with less dedicated funds.
In 1970, looks like we were spending about 40% of our spending on education. In actually the year 2000 to 2013, it's been flat at 20% of our budget. We need to reprioritize how we're spending our money. We're not spending it properly, and we need to get away from the metro areas. You know, every child in this state deserves a quality education. And it doesn't matter if they're male or female, white, black, red, purple, green, it doesn't matter. They all deserve an equal opportunity at education, and we have not been giving that to our children. We've been spending money in the Twin Cities with a rate of, 45 to 52% graduation rate. Needs to be repaired. There's more wrong there than just money. Thank you.
Move to candidates in District 7A, starting with Jen Schultz.
Well, I just want to commend Representatives Murphy and Simonson for funding all-day kindergarten. And in Duluth, that benefited us because we were paying for all-day kindergarten. So now we're able to use those funds to fund reduced class size and to hire more teachers, which the school district did. I talked to Bill Grunseth recently, the superintendent of the schools. He said this is the first time in 20 years that there's not a deficit. So I think we're on the right track of funding schools. We need to make sure we make it a priority to attract businesses for job growth in Duluth. And I think we want to make sure that we address issues like the achievement gap and that we're using our funds wisely and in the right areas by hiring more specialists to address the achievement gap. But we've made a lot of strong movements in the right direction, and I want to continue to make sure we're investing in education because it's the foundation for our growth and our success.
Thank you. Becky?
Firstly, I would fight for rural schools, our schools, out non-metro schools, that their funding is on a more equal standard with the metro schools. In Minneapolis-St. Paul, we spend $13,700 per pupil. In the rural schools, it's closer to $9,900. So that needs to be more equitable. And as I mentioned before with LGA, since we're requiring schools to mandate all-day kindergarten, some of those schools need funding addressed through that formula as well. I think that needs to be improved. But I don't think anyone has thought about the wonderful opportunities in mining, and I know my kids will be here after mining takes place here in northeastern Minnesota. It's been going on for 130 years, and we all are thriving well. In mining, with the opportunities that are coming up, there is the opportunity to put $2 billion plus in our new projects into the Minnesota School Trust Fund that would fund every school district in Minnesota. Those are the kinds of things I would support.
Thank you. Chris?
Both parties are trickled down, one more so than the other, but they're both trickled down, both major parties. I've subbed in the school district. I've subbed in classes that had 50 kids in math in high school. This is 2 years ago. Kindergartens with 25 kids. This is unconscionable in this wealthy state. We need to stop tax loopholes. We need to stop the trickle down. There's plenty of money here. Our kids deserve better. They deserve aides in the classrooms. They deserve more personnel, and teachers deserve higher pay. No more trickle down. Tax where you need to and pay for kids.
Thank you. Our next question, what would you do to promote economic development in Greater Minnesota? This, we'll start with the candidates in District 3B, and we'll be starting with Wade.
Well, the first thing to do is we would get PolyMet going. We would get twin metals going. We can do this in an environmentally responsible way. I love the Boundary Waters. I love Lake Superior. I go out on them all the time. We also need to get the Sandpiper pipeline up and running, alleviate our railroads. My brother is a engineer on the railroad, hauling oil. That's not what he used to haul. He used to haul taconite, he used to haul wood products, he used to haul grain. Now he's hauling oil. It's not an efficient way to get it done. We need to get some of the roadblocks out of the way. Not that we don't need regulation, we do need regulation, but we need common sense regulation. Thank you.
I would work with the people at the community colleges, find out what programs are needed, and fund those programs that are needed for the community colleges to work on training programs in partnership with the businesses that are coming in, so that very similar to what Lake Superior is doing with the aviation industry that's coming in. I would work on building projects at the universities, Minnesota and the MnSCU universities across the state. I would raise the per pupil unit formula so that our education system, from the very early childhood and family education up through the college and master degree programs, were funded, so that, because education is the foundation of economic development.
We'll move to candidates in 7A, and we'll start with Becky.
Okay, well, this is an area that I get all excited about because it's where my background lies, and that's in economic development. I remember working with businesses, like I mentioned before, businesses and communities, and we talked about the issues that keep businesses from growing in the communities. And what I heard a lot, and I see a lot still today, is number one, Minnesota is the third highest taxed business tax state in the union. Businesses say that a higher tax rate, high regulatory issues hinder job growth, hinder business growth, job growth. We need to regulate reasonably, but not so much that it sends our wonderful companies into our surrounding states. It puts Minnesota at a huge disadvantage. By increasing our business base, we're increasing taxes on, folks are getting jobs, great paying jobs, are paying taxes, we're growing our tax base, and we're better able to fund education, transportation, healthcare, and most importantly, we need to celebrate the businesses here in northeastern Minnesota, like mining, aviation, healthcare, and I wish I had more time to talk about it, but wonderful opportunities. We don't have a voice in St. Paul that's supporting it right now.
Chris.
Would you repeat the question?
Bet. How would you promote economic development in Greater Minnesota?
We need to be investing in wind and sun. We have to get off oil. We even have to stop the pipelines. They are not going to promote health anywhere on the globe. They're just going to be to the detriment of all. So sun and wind are wonderful, clean energy, sustainable industries. We could even be making, and in a sustainable way, that's an interesting idea, windmills here, because we import them from Germany through the Great Lakes. What if we made them here and exported them? Hemp is a wonderful product to think of, or plant to think about, because it has so many applications. You can build with hemp. You can make cars with hemp, et cetera, oil, whatever. So we should be doing research on that. Local entrepreneurships, food production, we should be encouraging that, finding monies to support local food production and other local entrepreneurships.
Well, our governor has a lot of experience in economic development, and he understands what works. And if you have any real experience in economic development, you know that what works is investing in talent, innovation, and trade. Those are the keys. You know, taxes are not the be-all, end-all for economic development. So you want to make sure talent, that you're investing in education and training to make sure you have a skilled workforce. You want to make sure that you're innovative, that you have programs in research and development funded through the universities and through MNSCU. And you want to connect those programs to businesses. And I want to be a voice for small businesses because I don't think they have a strong voice in the chamber in Duluth. And so we want to make sure that we're representing their needs down in St. Paul. And I want to make sure that we're focusing on things that work in economic development. And I think the governor has figured it out. And I want to go down to St. Paul so we continue our recipe for success so we can move forward. Thank you.
So I'm not a huge believer in rhetoric, but I have to tell you this. If a candidate for office or a sitting legislator tells you that they're going to go to St. Paul and they're going to make PolyMet happen or they're going to make twin metals happen, that is not true. There is no legislator that has the individual power to make that happen. There is no legislative body that has the power to make that happen. That is controlled by the regulatory agencies, okay? So let's just get past that. Secondly, Greater Minnesota has been one of my passions in terms of economic development. And I worked with the Governor's Broadband Task Force, I worked with the League of Minnesota Cities, and I worked with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities to try to identify what the number one need of business was in Minnesota, and it was increased broadband capabilities. Very proud that this legislature passed for the first time a $20 million grant program designed to leverage the maximum private-public partnerships and monies to increase broadband capabilities across Greater Minnesota.
Thank you. We're now going to move to our lightning round. If you remember, the format is that we will give a 2 or 3 word phrase, and candidates will have 15 seconds to reply off the top of their head. We will start with candidates in 7A, and the question is philosophy of taxation.
First?
You are.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're not. Jen is.
Okay.
Philosophy of taxation.
Yes.
We need to make sure that we have a progressive taxation system and not a regressive taxation system. We have a real problem in our country and in our state of growing income and wealth inequality, and we need to make sure that we have a strong middle class, because you know who creates jobs? The middle class and the poor are job creators because they spend their money. They have purchasing power. Thank you.
My next. Okay, taxation philosophy, the lower the better. You can't tell me that if you don't allow businesses to keep more of their hard-earned dollar, they're not going to just keep it in their pocket. They're going to put it back in their businesses and create jobs. It's businesses and entrepreneurs that create the jobs, not the middle class. Those jobs are supporting the middle class.
Thank you. Chris?
Norway taxes its oil 78%. What if we taxed our mines 78%? We have trickle down. We need to, as Jen said, make it more equitable. Yep.
Eric,
I'm sorry.
to you.
Taxes necessary, need to be progressive, not regressive, agreed. Last session, we passed major tax increases, yes. But who was affected? If you're a single person making $150,000, if you're a married couple making $250,000, you're in a higher tax bracket.
Mary,
Taxes, fairness, income tax, the fairest.
Wade,
A flat tax would be the way to go. Who knows how to spend your money better than you? The government has proven time and time again that they do not know how to spend your money wisely.
we're going to start the next round with you, Eric. Needed revenue to repair roads.
Oh, yes. MnDOT says we are $12 billion deficit over the next 20 years just to fix our state roads and bridges. We need to invest somewhere in the neighborhoods of $700 million, new dollars, a year into transportation starting in 2015.
We'll move to 3B. Wade,
Okay, in 1960, we were spending just under $500 million on our roads. Our spending now is only at $1.3 billion. We're not spending properly. We're not budgeting properly.
We need a comprehensive, permanent, or at least for 20 years, comprehensive plan.
Becky?
Okay, we need to, I'd like to start with addressing the governor's task force that recommended 15% efficiencies within the transportation departments. Stop sending $32 million per year in leased vehicle tax to the general fund, and more priority to roads and bridges rather than transit in the metro area.
Chris?
Transit metro area here from St. Paul up here. We may have to raise the gas tax. What if we raised it a penny? We'd get a lot of money. And once again, it's trickle down. Our infrastructure is so awful in Duluth and elsewhere. Why? Because someone's not taxed enough to pay for it. And commercial trucks are ruining our roads. Let's get some money from them.
From the efficiencies, we only get $500 million. We need $1 billion every year to maintain what we have and $2 billion a year in infrastructure to do more. We need to have multiple sources of revenue to address our infrastructure, and we need to do it soon because it takes a lot of planning and a lot of time to do it right. Thank you.
Last lightning round question. Managing water resources. 3B, we'll start with Mary Murphy.
Water resources. The most serious problem in the state is maintaining our clean groundwater. Need to make sure that statewide we have plans in place for clean groundwater.
I get my water from a well, and I'm lucky enough to live on a small lake, and I want it to stay clean. We do need to make sure that we have common sense regulation in place for our groundwater safety and our children's safety.
Thank you. We'll move to 7A and start with Chris.
Water is life. If we lose our water, we lose everything. And we cannot mine, sulfide mine. We cannot permit sulfide mining. There are corrupt corporations coming after everything up north, and they will take out the water.
1 in 10 infants have elevated mercury levels in northeast Minnesota. We have polluted the water in the past. And people have remember going to the fire halls to get clean water. We have to protect our water, and we have to use it mindfully. You know, in many states, we're lucky we have fresh water here. In many states, they're having droughts and problems with water.
Two big things that are facing Minnesota. One here in northeastern Minnesota and to some degree in northwestern Minnesota is the mercury contamination in the water. We know MPCA is working on that particular problem currently. And groundwater quality in southern Minnesota is a huge issue that we need to focus on.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay, what exactly was the question again?
Managing water resources.
Managing water resources reasonably and effectively without infringing on citizens' property rights.
We're now going to move to the portion of the forum where we're asking audience questions. We will start with candidates in District 7A, starting with Jen Schultz. And, 1 minute for responses. Funding for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services Division in the Department of Human Services has been cut significantly over the years. Many vital services involving communication access are in jeopardy. If elected, what would you do to make sure that these constituents have access to these services, including education, jobs, mental health, chemical dependency services?
I think we need to make sure that we're funding services so everybody has an equal and fair opportunity to thrive in our community.
Okay, Health and Human Services takes up about 30% of the state budget. And in the last 2 years, it has seen an increase of 12%. It's outrageous that these programs are being cut back with increased funding in Health and Human Services. I think we need to take a better look at what's being funded in that budget and make sure that those programs are funded adequately.
Those programs are cut back is a tragedy. I have a friend who works with the disabled, especially children, and she works with the deaf. Yeah, it's trickle down, and we have to fund for the people. We have to be for the people, not for the corporations. And both parties couch out of the corporations. The chamber comes in, whoa, there goes a good thing. Yeah, so it's important to find the money, and it is in this state. Think of the huge corporations that are multi-billionaire corporations. We've got we've got the funds, we've got the money here. We need to use it for the people instead of for wealth.
Eric?
HHS budget has been one that's been hit hard, really hard over the last 10, 12 years. And over the last session, we made some really critical increases in some areas that desperately needed it. But we also know that there are other areas that need more money and more resources put into. In fact, you saw, maybe you didn't see, but we saw Representative Huntley over his last term in office, really frustrated with the dollar amount that he was given for a target for his committee in HHS. So there's much more work to be done there. We've got to make sure that these services are a priority for the state. And the best way that we can do that is to make sure that the advocates, are making their voices heard. So we want to hear those things and we want to hear those concerns because that needs to be part of our message that we bring back to St. Paul.
Thank you. Moving to District 3B, we'll start with Wade.
In 2010, we were spending 31% of our budget, or 37% of our budget on health care. We're now up to 41%. Again, we need to look at where we're spending that in our health care budget. These folks didn't ask for any of these things to happen to them. We need to help them. By doing that, to do that, we need to look at how we're spending our money. Once again, we're not spending it wisely in the right places. All we need to do is do it the way you do it at home. When you go shopping, you look for a coupon. That's what we have to do.
We have to prioritize, and we have to make it a priority. 10 years ago, there was a student-led town forum at UMD. Over 500 people were there from 6 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning, telling the university people, the administration at the university, that there was a need for teachers, that sign language teachers and teachers that would work for people with disabilities. And the next year, we had a class, an academic class for a minor at UMD for that. Those programs have to continue. We need a number one priority for people with disabilities and people with deaf and hard of hearing.
Thank you. Here's the second audience question. Eric, we're going to start with you. Students that have attended college are being crushed by student loan debt with substantial interest. Would you support state bonding to, 1, allow students to refinance their loan interest rates, 2, create a program of loan forgiveness, or have you some other solution?
No, that's a really good question, and I don't pretend to tell you that I have the best answer, but we know that we need to do more. The state is not being the partner that it needs to be in funding higher education, and you need look no further than our Constitution to tell you that. It needs to be a higher priority. I think that in the last 2 years, we've made it a priority. We froze tuition for 2 years in a row at MNSCU and at the U. And, you know, obviously, we'd like to continue that into the next biennium. But in order to do that, we've got to work with our universities and make sure that by freezing tuition, we're not hurting programs, we're not hurting students. So we know that students are being overburdened. And yes, I would look at just about any alternative that we can find to reducing the debt load, or at least letting them refinance it into something that's a little bit more manageable, because education really truly is the success, you know, the key to success here in Minnesota, especially higher education.
Thank you. We'll move to candidates in 3B, starting with Mary.
The first question was on restructuring.
Allow students to refinance their loan interest rates. Second, create a program of loan forgiveness. And third is, do you have any solution of your own?
I say yes on restructuring and reconfiguring their loan interest. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times, if their circumstances change as they're paying off their loans. I think that we need to develop a better program for parents and grandparents to contribute to as the child is growing up from birth to high school graduation, so that that program is more advantageous to participate in.
Wade?
Some of it comes right down to personal responsibility. My children went to college. I didn't pay for their schooling. They paid for their schooling. They did not take out loans, and they both got great educations. One is a plant manager down in the Twin Cities. Got 180 employees under him. The other one works here in town, working with the developmentally disabled, and she's going back to school, and she's going to pay for it on her own without taking out a loan. If you take out a loan, you have to know that you're going to have to pay it back. And you have to pay it back under the terms that the lender lended it to you. You know, that was the agreement. Refinancing them, you still have to pay it back. Sooner or later, you're going to have to pay it back. So it's a tough question, and it's going to take a tough solution.
Thank you. Moving to candidates in 7A, we'll start with Becky Hall.
Okay, well, being a mom of 2 college students, and a third starting next fall, and a couple high schoolers, this issue is near and dear to my heart. Here's some of my ideas. Number one, support mining. Not only does mining contribute to the Permanent School Trust Fund for school districts in Minnesota, it also provides funding for freshmen in our University of Minnesota system. I would promote or advocate an education savings account for parents. Mary, you kind of touched on that a little bit. I would ask that we allow parents to save $3,000 a year towards college funding. I'd also offer up a sales tax-free weekend so families can purchase educational expenses tax-free. And I would really encourage kids in high school to take advantage of the PSEO, the college credits for high schoolers. Kids can take up to almost 2 years of college credit while they're in high school. That would alleviate a little bit of their college debt burden. Those are just some ideas that I would propose, and I have more too I would love to share.
Thank you. Chris?
Our universities have such top-heavy administration, and the kids pay for that. Maybe we should take a look at that, especially our public universities. Cut back on those jobs. What are all those folks doing? Are they helping kids? Second idea is Germany offers free education to people here in the United States, I think around the world. They're welcoming people to come and take advantage of universities free there. Why don't we have free education here? Good idea. We've got the money, got to have the will. A state bank would help us with funding many of our deficits. It could help with kids' loans. It could help with transportation. We'd have money for infrastructure and so on. And predatory bankers, why don't we get rid of them? We should somehow bar predatory or lenders. One last thing, and that is loan forgiveness. Quantitative easing is done at Wall Street, at the banks.
Your time is up.
Okay, and this is I'm finishing up. And we should afford quantitative easing for the kids.
Jen?
My ideas would be college savings accounts for using pre-tax income. Those usually are used by wealthier individuals, so we also need to make sure we're funding through grants and loans, but also to increase state funding to education because state funding has drastically fallen. I didn't pay off my college loans until I was in my 30s, but I had loans. It's worse for students today. They graduate with about $30,000 in debt. If we pursued some of Ms. Hall's policies, $3,000 credit, that's not refundable. Those who don't pay taxes wouldn't benefit, and we would wipe out most of our state income tax revenue, so there would be no schools.
Thank you. The next question will start with candidates in District 3B, starting with Wade. Minnesota currently has a clean indoor air law prohibiting smoking in all workplaces, including bars and restaurants. Would you support including e-cigarettes under this legislation prohibiting e-cigarettes use in all Minnesota workplaces?
Yes, I would. I think they're silly. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes, I would.
Yes, I would, and I have tried.
I would lean towards yes, although, I think the jury is still out on whether some of those e-cigarettes can be done safely, but I lean towards yes because I'm very concerned about it getting into the hands of our younger kids, and I'd rather be be safe than sorry.
Ask the question again.
Whoops, I've got to read the right ones.
Okay.
Right. Minnesota currently has a clean indoor air law prohibiting smoking in all workplaces, including bars and restaurants. Would you support including e-cigarettes under this legislation, prohibiting e-cigarettes use in all of Minnesota workplaces?
I wish I knew more about e-cigarettes. I hear that people are promoting them proposing that they be prohibited, so that seems to be everybody's vote here, and I'll go with that.
Jen?
I would, and I'll tell you why, because it will reduce our future health care costs, which we all pay for. So it may be safer in terms of zero secondhand smoke, but it hurts individual smoking. And we need to make sure that we're providing a disincentive to smoke. As an economist, it's It's all about incentives and changing behavior. We want to reduce the number of people who smoke so we can reduce our future healthcare costs. That will help all of us.
Thank you. Next audience question, we'll start with candidates in 7A with Jen Schultz. How would you respond to those in our community who express concern that many in our community are fraudulently taking advantage of our social services? What incentives do you believe will encourage a strong working population and support job creation?
Actually, we spend a very, very small percentage of our budget, less than 1%, on services for individuals who are unemployed and are using services. And when I door knock, and I've door knocked over 8,000 households over the last year, people are under this impression that individuals are moving here from Chicago or Detroit, which is not true. We have very few people who get on welfare or getting aid, and the amount of aid that they're getting has not kept up with inflation. So there's programs here that are designed to help women and their children succeed, and they're on them temporarily, and those haven't been increased since the 1980s. And we need to make sure that we're helping people succeed so they can take care of themselves and get a job and get an education and provide income to support their family. Thank you.
Becky? Yes. How would you respond to those in our community who express concern that many in our community are, I think it's fraudulently taking advantage of our social services? What incentives do you believe will encourage a strong working population and support job creation? And the next respondent would be Becky.
Okay, well, we need to make sure we have policies that ensure that no fraudulent activity is taking place. But we also need incentives that encourage folks who, for a time, have to be on those programs, that they are getting good worker training, support, and get them back on their feet and back out there in the community. And again, I'd like to take my experience. This is what I did when I was working for the Department of Trade and Economic Development, and that's supporting our local economy, supporting our businesses that create those jobs. We have wonderful opportunities here in the Northland to create great paying jobs in many sectors: aviation, healthcare, mining, jobs that can be done well, jobs that pay well, and by having more jobs, we're better able to help those who need them, who are trying to get off. Nobody wants to be taking those programs if they don't have to, and we need to support them and help them in getting those jobs. So we got to create the jobs first, and we have great opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Chris?
As Jen said, there are very few people availing themselves of those programs here in Duluth, and it's hard to get on them. People have told me about being turned away when they felt they really needed some support from the state or from the county. There are people who will always need help of some sort. There are people that have mental problems, that have drug addictions that don't go away. There are people that will always need some help. We need to provide training for people that are on, well, first we need to up the ante for them so that they can live a decent life. It's wrong to have them receiving money, the same money that people got on welfare in the 80s. And then we need to have training programs to get them viably back into the economy.
Thank you. 7B, Eric?
So 3 things. I have worked on the streets of Duluth for 25 years now, and I think that there's this misconception that there's this vast quantity of people migrating from other cities to take advantage of our welfare system here in Duluth, Minnesota. The people that are on the streets, that are homeless, that are unemployed, that have no place to go, I assure you they do not want to be in that position. And they are not going to make a career out of that. I think there's 2 things that we can do. One is we can make sure that we're funding our counties to the extent where they can provide the services that are necessary for the people that need them. And two, make sure that we're funding our state DHS to the extent that we need to make sure that people that need to fall into those services can take advantage of it. But this premise that there's some big, secret movement to come to Duluth to take advantage of our welfare system, it doesn't exist.
Thank you. We'll move to 3B, starting with Wade.
I think a welfare to work program would be the way to go. I personally know of a young lady that worked for my company, and it was an entry-level position. She started to make just a little bit too much money to still, she didn't need all of the services, but she needed a little bit of help, just a little bit of help. And she couldn't get that because she was making too much money. We need to have a way where we can, just like when you're raising your children, you wean them off things. You don't cut it off completely, just a little bit at a time. And in that way, giving employers incentive to hire those folks, that will really, really help alleviate the training gap also, because they'll be trained on the job.
Mary?
It's a myth. MYTH. It's a myth. And people that are on social services and help, the average number of years is 18 months. So a year and a half or so, less than 2 years. If my solution to help some of the people that are calling social services, if they had a live person answer the phone, that would help a lot. If the person that's calling for help or needs assistance would speak to a live person.
That's the end of our audience questions. We're going to now move into the closing statements. We're going to start with candidate in 7B, Eric. And you'll have 1 minute.
Well, thank you, and again, thank you all for coming tonight. And I just appreciate the opportunity to serve Duluth and hope to get your support for another term. I think that Minnesota really has turned a corner here, and that we're on the right track. I do believe that, and I stand up for that. I think we have much more work to do. 2015, I think, will be the big year for transportation, and transportation is an important issue to our state. And it's just going to come down to how we fund that. But I think that, the DFL has done good work, and I think that this concept of the one-party control has turned out to be a good thing for Minnesota, because we are on a progressive track, and I'm very proud of that. So I hope to get your support in November and look forward to serving another term. Thank you.
Move to candidates in 3B and start with Mary Murphy.
Thank you very much. I truly believe that the 2013-14 legislative sessions were the most productive that we've had since the early 1970s. And we finished early. I'm proud to be part of that leadership and that is responsible for these historic gains, and I want to continue. With your help, we can do that. Education will be #1 priority, transportation second. Keeping older Minnesotans in their own homes, if they want to be, is my third goal.
Thank you. Wade.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Transportation is the biggest issue our state is facing right now, and our funding has been flat on it for a long time. What we need is we need to get down to real business, sit down, figure out what's important, what's not important. Senate building is not important. Viking Stadium is not important. Those type of things are not important. We need to have equalization in our education funding. spending money in the metro area on a system that is failing its students, well, our school up here in Two Harbors wasn't even able to run for 5 days a week. They had to go to 4 because they didn't have the funding available from the state. Those are things that I would work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates in 7A, starting with Becky Hall.
Okay, well, thank you for listening tonight. I'm Becky Hall. Check out hallinthehouse.com if you want to learn more about my positions. I also have some brochures on the table there too that talk about the issues that matter to me. And you know what? It's not just what the issues that matter to me. It's what I'm hearing when I'm out there in the district, talking with my neighbors. I'm a mom raising 5 kids. It's just my passion to want to serve my community. This is a great place to raise a family. And the issues I hear when I'm out there are transportation, education, economy, jobs, mining comes up, taxes, and health care. I don't believe that one party running the show in St. Paul is good for Minnesota. That is not a democracy, and Duluth can do better than that. We deserve to have more than one voice in St. Paul, and I want to be that voice for you that's fighting for jobs, fighting for stronger families, supporting the wonderful opportunities we have in northeastern Minnesota, because I'm not hearing that voice in St. Paul right now. So I would be honored to serve. The Duluth News Tribune also appreciates my values and what I'm fighting for and has given me their endorsement, and I would be honored to have yours. Thank you.
Chris?
Thanks, everybody, for being here. Those were great questions. I am a Green Party candidate, and the two-party system is not working for us. It's beholden to the corporations, both parties. A failed economy is a product of this corporate system, and we may have less unemployment now, but it's because we're financing and we're insuring Bakken oil, and that is detrimental to everybody. I'm running because both parties are playing with the devastation of our watershed. I'm for education, of course, keeping people the elderly in their homes. But the elephant in the room is the sulfide mining, and no one will have health. No one would want to be here for education if that mining ruins northern Minnesota. So the people want better. We want sustainable jobs that won't ruin our water. As a Green Party candidate, I will lead on this issue. I'd like your vote.
I just want to thank the League and thank for everyone attending. I'm proud to be a Democrat, and I'm proud to share the values of Democrats. And I believe Minnesota is a great state, and Duluth is strong and a supportive community. We're succeeding because we have economic growth, we have low unemployment, we have a strong business climate that's been rated in the top 10 by Forbes and CNBC. And we're doing much better than other Tea Party states that believe in trickle-down economics. That doesn't work. And saying our economy is not doing well is just wrong. We need to make wise choices with our tax dollars to continue moving forward. As an economist with over 20 years of experience, I know the value of continuing to move forward with a state that works. We need legislators that can work both sides of the aisle, not individuals who rely on failed ideology. I've been endorsed by many community organizations and elected officials like Tom Huntley and Lieutenant Governor Yvonne Pretner-Solon. But your endorsement will be the most important to me. Your vote on November 4th. I want to go to St. Paul to work for you, to work for our community, and to work for the state.
Thank you.
Please elect me on November 4th so I can be an economist for the people. Thank you.
This concludes tonight's candidate forum for state legislative districts 7B, 7A, and 7B. It is our purpose in sponsoring events such as this to provide you with an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss the issues that are important to you face to face. There's never enough time to cover all of the issues in a limited time setting such as this. If your questions were not answered, please feel free to contact the candidates directly. We hope this program has helped you learn more about the candidates and the issues so that you can make informed choices at the polls on Election Day, November 4th. I believe the candidates will be available in the hallway following the forum for a short period of time. To find out more about your precinct and where to vote, you can stop by the league table in the hall or go to the www.mnvotes.org. That is mnvotes.org. Tonight's forum has been filmed, and a link online posting will be provided on the league website. Again, that's LWV Duluth, all one word, .org. This forum will also be shown on PAC Channel 180, and the schedule from PAC will also be on the league website. Duluth is sponsoring 2 additional candidate forums, one on Tuesday, October 21st, starting at 7 for State Representative District 7A, and that's at the Lakeside Community Club. Also Tuesday, October 28th, the Secretary of State Candidate Forum. This is a viewing event. It's going to be held in the atrium of the Zeitgeist Arts Building at 222 East Superior Street in Duluth. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level. While we as a league study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties or candidates. Again, the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the league. Additionally, sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any individual candidate who participate. We do encourage our members as individuals, just as we encourage each of you to become civically involved in your community and the political party of your choice. If you would like to become a supporting member of the League of Women Voters of Duluth, please stop by our table in the hall. Visit us on Facebook or check out our website. We thank the candidates, the City of Duluth, and you for making this event possible. Thank you for coming, and please remember to vote on Election Day, November 4th. Thank you.